Hey everyone, it's Pittico from Rock Daydream Nation, and today we're doing a special show. We are going to cover the albums of Black Sabbath, the Tony Martin years. Best song, worst song, and talk about everything in between. Today I've got some special guests. Reed Little from the Contrarians. Welcome back to the show, Reed.
Thanks, Peter. Thank you for inviting me. You know, I love talking Sabbath.
And special guest, K-Man. You may have seen him on that Metal Voice, and he's a Facebook commentator. I love the stuff that he puts out. How are you, K-Man?
I'm very well. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Good to have you on the show. So what we're going to do, as I said, cover the Tony Martin albums. So let's get straight into it. We'll start off with this little number. Black Sabbath, Eternal Idol. Came out in 1987. This lineup was Iommi, Tony Martin on vocals, Jeff Nichols on keyboards, Bob Daisley, Eric Singer on drums. So, Reed, best song, least favorite song.
Okay. So I have been listening to this album since it came out. I remember in 1987, I thought it was really strangely out of step with heavy metal, at least in America. It's a fantastic band. I think that Tony Iommi had put together a band that was easily the equal of anything that Ozzy Osbourne had after years of being trounced by Ozzy in sales in America. But of course, the problem was Ozzy was, he started being popular in 1982. 5 years later, glam metal is the #1 heavy music in the world, I think, but definitely in America. Thrash was a distant second, and traditional metal was almost non-existent. So just weirdly out of step. And yet they still put together a fantastic album. It was a great debut for Tony Martin, probably because he got to sing Bob Daisley's lyrics. We'll get into it as we go, but I don't think Tony Martin's a particularly good lyricist. He has some great lyrics, but he has some real daft lyrics too. So my favorite, I'm going to start off with Lost Forever. Lost Forever is a nice upbeat track. It's faster tempo, has a fantastic riff. During the Martin era, Iommi doesn't always play great riffs. He's concentrating more on melody and soloing, and his soloing game really ups during this era. But the riff on Lost Forever is fantastic. The lyrics about a hanged man, and what happens to this guy's soul after he's hanged. Doomy, but not over the top like we're going to get on the next album. Really just fit very, very well. I think Daisley had a good hand on kind of the Black Sabbath thing. And it's just a fantastic song all around. Also fantastic guitar solo. It even has some like playful little licks. And I don't really associate that with, the Iron Man of heavy metal. So it's a nice change of pace. Just a really great song all the way around. Do you want me to do my least favorite too, or just
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So my least favorite, interestingly, is the most stereotypically Black Sabbath track on the album. It's the closing track, Eternal Idol. I don't think it ever really becomes very interesting. Now, I don't dislike this song. There actually are some songs later that I truly just don't like and I don't listen to. This song, I think, is fine, but it's not any better than fine. Those really slow, kind of repetitive songs are difficult to make interesting. They did it better with Dio at the microphone. They never quite get there with Tony Martin for me. And then this song doesn't even have a traditional guitar solo to break it up. There's an outro solo that's mixed way back, but I am left wanting during this track, and I don't think it's a great way to end the album.
Yeah, thanks, Reed. And from memory, you selected the Eternal Idol in our top 10 favorite Black Sabbath albums, didn't we?
Oh, I mean, I would be shocked if I didn't. I love this album. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, man, do you like Eternal Idol?
Yeah, I like Eternal Idol. I'm a bit younger than I think both of yourselves. So, but I've been a big Black Sabbath fan all my life, and I've never really distinguished between, oh, this is the Dio era Black Sabbath, this is the Tony Martin, like, this really separated them out and said, oh, okay, now I'm getting a different band, a different lineup. I tended to just experience it all as I found the albums as I went along. So it's only in recent years, especially with being online, people have really started to say, "Oh, these are Tony Martin's albums versus these are Ozzy's albums." And so for me, growing up, I always just enjoyed everything I came into contact with, and I think Eternal Idol, I feel the same about still, even though obviously there's a big shift between musically what Sabbath did with Ozzy and Dio versus with Eternal Idol, but it's an album I've always enjoyed, even though it's not technically a Tony Martin album. He just kind of redid the vocals when he joined the band.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So
But
what's your favorite song, least favorite song?
my favourite song, even though it might be a bit of an obvious one, has to be The Shining. I think it as a song, as a Sabbath song itself, just has all the elements that make Sabbath great. Okay, it's kind of a, a rip off of Children of the Sea a little bit, but and it's a much older song than it became on the on this album. But I just think everything about it, Tony Martin's performance on it, the riff, the chorus, it's just massive in it, and it has everything that I love about Sabbath in it. What a great song! That's my favourite song of the album.
Okay. Least favorite?
Although
Yep.
my least favourite song on this album, I feel like some of the middle of the album never really holds my attention as much. So once you get into the album, a few of the middle songs towards the end, I feel the album kind of loses its kind of gravitas. Even though you could, I think, Ancient Warrior and Hard Life to Love, these are strong songs, but they're not really as Sabbathy as you would expect. You know what I mean? They're quite different. They're musically more, and well, I hate to say the word interesting, but they're definitely a departure from what you might expect from Sabbath. Whereas the middle of the album tends to kind of lose my attention and lose my appreciation. And I think Glory Ride, Glory Ride, and Nightmare especially are just both of those songs don't really do much for me, and I feel like there is a lot of that. I mean, that's what happens to me, even though I'm a big fan of these the Tony Martin era of albums. I feel like that, like Reed kind of mentioned earlier, like the songwriting lyrically is not really as strong as you come to expect from Sabbath, and especially so I would say it's a toss up between Glory Ride and Nightmare are two songs I wouldn't say are particularly great Sabbath songs on for me off this album.
Okay. Thank you very much. My favorite song is The Shining. I love it. It has a really nice cascading build up, and then the power chords come out with Iomi. And I love Tony Martin's vocals that come in the verse. It's kind of folky, pastoral, you know. It's kind of dramatic, but it's on the right side of camp. And with the wrong vocalist, it could be really cheesy and campy, but he just does it on the right side of the ledger. Bob Daisley, great lyricist. His bass lines are solid. His bass line reminds me of Heaven and Hell. And actually, I find a lot of the Tony Martin era songs are kind of throwbacks to the Dio era in regards to bass lines, in regards to cribbing riffs. There's a little bit of recycling, but that's fine. I mean, if you've created some of the greatest riffs in heavy metal history, recycle yourself. I have no issue. It's storytelling. It's a fun listen. And I find that Martin's vocals are kind of a cleaner version of Dio. I think at that particular point in time, and look, throw rocks at me, I think he probably had a bigger vocal range than Dio at that particular time. Because Dio, great vocalist, had a little bit of wear and tear. Now, you've got to remember, this was originally recorded with Ray Gillen. Fantastic vocalist. And this is one of those rare occurrences where you get a vocalist in to replace somebody and it fits, it works. It doesn't always happen.
Actually, this song's much older than when they did it with Ray Gillen. It actually goes back to 1984. I think there's versions of this song that exist with different lyrics, but the basic bones of the song are all there back in 1984. So that's how long the kind of germ of this song has existed before it became on this album, which I find fascinating. The fact that that Tony Iommi's had this, not just the riff, but the real impetus for this song for such a long period of time. I mean, when was this? 1987. So at least 3-4 years he'd been trying to create this song to turn it into The Shining. It's amazing.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and it's come out as something really good. Hey, if you listen to this album, there were a couple of songs that I was almost going to pick. Born to Lose, I love. Listen to the version with Ray Gillen. To me, that'd fit on a Badlands album. It's really bluesy. So I love Ray Gillen's vocals, but that's an old another episode. Lost Forever, in my opinion, is a real ball terror. Martin's Upper Register gets a workout, but they were kind of like honourable mentions. The one I've chosen as my least favourite is Scarlet Pimpernel. It's an acoustic workout. It's a palate cleanser, clears your head out, and it's ready for Lost Forever. It's not memorable. So in a lot of these shows, I always have to gravitate to the Tony Iommi acoustic song as the least favourite because I just want more ball-tearing riffs. Yeah. But, All right. So we go to this album, Headless Cross and Black Sabbath. So Iommi, Cozzy Powell on drums, Tony Martin vocals, Jeff Nichols keyboards, and a guy called Lawrence Cottle on bass, a bit of a session player. So over to you, Reed. What do you think of this album and best song, least favorite song?
Okay. Oh, and I will say I set myself a self-imposed rule that I was not going to pick any instrumentals because I would always pick the instrumental track as my least favorite track. I just don't think Sabbath is particularly good at instrumental tracks.
Not even Superstar of Sabotage? I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, that one's different. But
gotcha.
It has vocals, though. It doesn't have lyrics, but it does have singers. So not strictly instrumental. So Headless Cross, another album that I got in real time. I'm just qualifying because I didn't with all of these. But I remember seeing the video for Headless Cross on MTV, of all places. And I thought, oh, wow, this is pretty good. This album's going to be awesome. I loved Eternal Idol. And I went out and got it and listened to it. And I was like, this is not, it's not as good as Eternal Idol. There's some good moments to be found on it. I am sorry to say that in my opinion, the lyrics are a big step down. Tony Martin really took the job of being the Black Sabbath lyric writer very seriously. And he wrote what he thought were Sabbath-esque, Sabbatharian lyrics, meaning they were all evil. And he was talking about the devil. I was like, it's over the top. And Peter, before you said that, he could be on the right side of camp. Well, when he's singing Bob Daisley's lyrics, he can be. When he's singing his own lyrics, he's often on the wrong side of that. Now there are still some good moments to be had on this album, and I do enjoy it. My favorite song on it is actually at least on my CD, it's the last track, Nightwing, which I love this song so much because it's so stupid. The song is probably about an owl flying around killing things at night. So it's not nearly as like doomy as it sounds. The kill is around the bend. Nightwing flies again. But I love it's so simple when Tony Iommi comes in with that. I mean, that is Black Sabbath to me. It's that power. It's that aggression. I mean, Sabbath is a simple band. Martin Popoff often calls them a caveman band. You can break them down to the riff and the lyric. That's really what makes Sabbath music Sabbath music. And I just love this song. And Tony Martin, I will agree. I mean, I don't know if you really think about Dio's lowest note versus his highest note, which is what your range is. I don't know that Tony Martin has a wider range, but he definitely has a broader dynamic range. He will sing quietly, whereas Dio is always pushing a lot of air. He's always a very forceful singer. And on this song, you really get that dynamic range, very low, soaring up to the really aggressive vocals. I think it shows off Tony Martin to his best effect, and it's just a fantastic song. Now, my least favorite, and there are a couple of tracks I don't particularly care for. It's always bugged me that Brian May, the only other person to play a guitar solo on a Black Sabbath album, he delivers the solo on When Death Calls, and I don't think it's particularly good. It's fine. I mean, it's fine. But it's nothing compared to the stuff he was turning in Queen's music. But I thought about that one, but in the end, I went with Kill in the Spirit World. This song has always rubbed me the wrong way. None of it works for me. I think it's almost AOR. It starts off with this really aggressive guitar, like Black Sabbath intro, but when the verse starts, the intensity pulls way back, the keyboards come in more heavily, and it's almost like, I don't know, Loverboy, but with Black Sabbath-y lyrics. The whole thing doesn't work for me. And I just listen to it and go, I don't know, man. And again, you're hearing Tony Iommi really stuck in the early 80s. By 1989, that music was so out of favor. And I'm like, this is okay. I mean, no shade on the guy. He had been making heavy metal since 1970. I mean, he didn't need to prove anything to me. But I think he was past his expiration date on new ideas. And now he was just kind of reproducing what he liked from the early 80s. And again, it doesn't work for me.
Yeah, thanks, Reed. K-Man, favorite song, least favorite song?
I just want to say that I love this album, and I think pound for pound, beyond my personal favourite album, I think this is probably the best Tony Martin Black Sabbath album for everyone. If I had to say, looking at the track list, looking at the songs, how it's delivered, what would I recommend a Tony Martin Black Sabbath album to someone? It would probably be this one, just because of how strong I think it is. In terms of favourite song, my personal favourite is a song that didn't appear on the album. It was only on the picture disc version. It's if that's all right, it's the bonus track. It's called Cloak and Dagger, and it's like a waltz. They've recently put it back on the album for the new box set of Tony Martin's albums, and I've always loved it. I had this the picture disc in my collection all my life, and it's a song that is so different for Black Sabbath to do like a waltz type of song, and I feel like it's criminal that it's not been on the album or not been available for Sabbath fans for so long, just because of how enjoyable it is. It's just a personal favourite of mine. and that is my favourite song of the album, and it's good that it's been reissued for everyone. In terms of a least favourite, I think I'm going to have to agree with Reed, because except sometimes I feel the reasons that it is different make it an interesting song. Like the fact that it is a kind of AOR song is so unusual, and it's so it almost like when those keyboards kick in and the chorus kicks in, you get a sense of shock that it actually is a Black Sabbath song, and it stands out on the album because of that. I don't dislike Killing the Spirit World. I quite like it. It's just it probably is the weakest song on the album overall. And if you don't want to include Cloak and Dagger, I think Black Moon's amazing. That's a great song as well.
Thanks, K-Man. And yeah, you have broken the rules, but
Yep.
you're a guest, so we'll let you go. It's all good. It's all good. Hey, one thing you notice about Sabbath as you get deep into the Martin catalogue, keyboards.
Yeah.
Jeff Nichols is becoming, he's out of the side and he's up front now. Especially the next album we'll talk about. A lot of keyboard. I'm not a big fan of this album. I think it's too many long songs. It's a bit unfocused. The riffs aren't as sharp. For example, Black Moon sounds like it would come off Never Say Die. Killing the Spirit World is a slightly commercial metal feel, and it sounds like when Dio would be doing his Hungry for Heaven. Remember those early Dio albums? There'd always be one guaranteed soundtrack song where he'd, pitch it to Vision Quest or try to get into MTV. So, yeah, it's just too commercial for mine. But my favourite one is Devil and Daughter. It gallops along like a spooky symphonic gothic little piece. Martin sings a very engaging vocal line over it, some double tracking. It's a bit of a vibe song more than a traditional hooky Sabbath song. I think you find in this era that a lot of the songs are more melody, as Reed says, and less riffy. And a lot of the songs have more of a vibe to it. So that's my favourite. Headless Cross. To me, it's like a poor cousin or spawn of The Shining. It's got that similar sort of vibe. And you've got the Heaven and Hell bass line. Dun, 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 dun. Cottle plays this one-string bass pattern. It meanders like the Amazon. It doesn't have a hook or a memorable hook other than the Headless Cross refrain. That's the only thing you can really remember it from the song. And Tony's diction on this one, he mumbles a little bit. Diction in the lower register, it's like, and there, Headless Cross, Yeah, I have problems with this song. But, I think this is probably not my favourite Martin era Sabbath album, but hey, it's just an opinion.
I think the song, like the single, was actually like mildly successful for them as well, which at the time, in the UK at least, it's actually still played at gigs and stuff, which is the only Tony Martin song I've ever heard out in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got to say that the stocks for Black Sabbath were really at its lowest peak. They were on a label, the IRS label in America, Reed. That's an independent label. Is this a record you would have seen in the stores or would have been just tucked away,
Just tucked away. I mean, I only knew it was out because I saw the video on MTV. Yeah. So, I mean, it was findable, but it wasn't something that you were going to walk into the store and they were going to have a big, Headless Cross display at the front of the store.
Yeah, and they were playing clubs. So, seeing the Sea of Tranquility and guys like Butch Jones and, on his Facebook page, and he talks about he saw Black Sabbath in clubs. Yeah. That's just mind-blowing.
I think I've read Tony Iommi saying that him and the rest of the band were really frustrated in terms of the marketing campaign for the album. They said that they were constantly getting feedback from the representative over there that it wasn't selling well, but then when he went to the distributor to talk about it, they just didn't have it available for purchase a lot of the times in a lot of the shops. So he said that how he almost came to blows with the marketing team in terms of not being able to have the fans buy the album in places. He said this was the start of that.
Yeah. Do you guys like the album cover?
Oh, I really like it.
I don't mind it. What about you, Rick?
Neutral. Yeah, I mean it's okay.
Yeah. Let's talk the next one.
All right.
Tear. Now, what does that tell you? If you saw this in a shop, to me, it looks like Norwegian death metal.
Power metal.
K-Man, would you say this is like a death metal album if you just saw it at first sight?
I would probably say it was like more power metal. I wouldn't necessarily say death metal.
Oh, because it hasn't got the spidery, but just the darkness, you know.
Yeah,
just the if you take away the logo,
yeah.
No,
I definitely wouldn't think it was a Black Sabbath album based on.
Now, I will say, if the power metal band Tear did an album of Black Sabbath covers, I would love it way more than the Black Sabbath album Tear.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get into it. Tony Iommi, Cozy Powell on drums, Tony Martin on vocals, Neil Murray, the great Neil Murray from Whitesnake, and Jeff Nichols on keyboards. And he's listed as an additional musician. He should be in the bloody band because I tell you what, he's way up in this album. Reed, favorite song, least favorite?
This was the album where I got off the Black Sabbath bandwagon. I was not so enamored of Headless Cross that I was willing to find. In fact, I don't think Tear was easy to find. I don't think it was necessarily an import, but I don't think it was one that I had easy access to. And by then I was listening to pretty much nothing but Megadeth and Metallica and Anthrax, and the Black Sabbath at the time just wasn't doing it for me anymore. So I didn't listen to this album until the 21st century, really, when I decided, I need to go back and pick up the albums that I hadn't picked up. And Tear remains my least memorable Black Sabbath album. Not that I dislike it. I know this is the internet, so everything you might possibly name is going to be somebody's favorite thing and somebody's least favorite thing. After I listen to this album, I can remember exactly 2 songs. That's it, just 2. The rest of it is just kind of there and gone. So that said, as I was re-listening to this album, I was 99% certain that I was going to pick Jerusalem as my favorite song. It's been my favorite song on the album for years. But damn it, this time my favorite song was Feels Good to Me. And I am not even joking. It would not surprise me if it was you guys' least favorite song. But I love this song. It's very much reminiscent of the type of material that Tony Iommi was doing with Glenn Hughes on Seventh Star or on his solo albums. But I think that Tony Martin, freed from the restraint of writing Sabbath-like lyrics, produces a really good lyric. By the way, I came up with an analogy when I was preparing for this show. If Geezer Butler, if you think of Black Sabbath lyrics as like Hammer horror films, Geezer Butler is like late 50s, early 60s Hammer, like Horror of Dracula. And Tony Martin is early 70s Hammer, like Dracula 1972 AD.
I like that.
But yeah, I like Feels Good to Me. It's got a great melody. It's got 2 guitar solos. Again, much more like his solo material than Black Sabbath material. It starts off with a guitar solo. It's very melodic. There's really not much of a riff. Tony Martin turns in a very great emotional singing performance. It is, there's no way to get around. It is not a Black Sabbath-like song. There's no riff. There's no doomy lyrics. It's the least Sabbath-like thing that they put out in years. And just this once, for all of those reasons, I think it's fantastic. It stands out so far. It even had an incredibly bad video to go with it. If anybody's ever seen that one, Yeah, it has Tony Iommi sitting on a giant record as they spin him around. It's just, it's so strange, but fantastic song. And I'm going to get some hate in the comments on that, but I don't care. Pick your own freaking best of list, people. All right. So my least favorite, again, I made myself not pick the instrumental track, which is they do a like a 3-track suite. The Battle of Tyr, Odin's Court, and then Valhalla. I think Valhalla is a fine song, but Odin's Court is boring. Now, I'm counting it as a song because they count it as a song. It's very short, and yet, despite its lack of length, it fails to provide anything of interest. And I think if they took away the division between it and Valhalla, all that would do is ruin the entrance to Valhalla. It's there's nothing there. It's boring to me. It's kind of, I'm like, yeah, whatever. Skip. And then Valhalla's a fine song, but Odin's Court just doesn't do it for me.
Thanks, Reed. K-Man.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same about Tyr. I think I've met several Sabbath fans who, for them, this is like their Dark Horse album, where they really love something about it that's like, oh, this is a special album for them, which I've always found quite strange in the catalogue of Sabbath, and especially the Tony Martin albums. I think a lot of people are really turned on by Cozy Powell's drum sound and having Neil Murray in the band, maybe, but Tyr's never really been an album for me that's done much. I don't really think many of the songs are particularly good, and the ones I like are the ones I go back to, and then the rest of the album I pretty much never really go near, and some of them are just not memorable at all. However, the good ones are good enough to make this album decent. It's not a bad album. To hear Cozy Powell play the drums is always great. I think he is the star of the album, but I just don't feel like it's particularly anything to shout about. The album it's a strange album. I think what happened was it was the record label themselves. They came up with the idea of the theme of the album, the Norse god, and which I also found very strange considering the label had no impact on the writing of the album. So therefore, Tony Martin had to then go off the advisement and the campaign that the label had then brought to them for the album, and then write lyrics and come up with an idea and a theme of this Norse god based on the fact that they were going to promote the album in this way, which I've always found really strange, especially for Black Sabbath, who always seem to know what they want to do and to make the music amongst themselves. I always found that very, very strange that it was the label themselves that came up with the idea of the album. And it also, I think that's also why it doesn't really particularly seem very Black Sabbathy for Black Sabbath to write a semi-concept album. It's not really a concept album, but like you say, you've got those 4 songs in the middle that are vaguely based around an idea. But I will say, I think Anno Monday is my favourite. The opener, again, like on Eternal Idol, is a song that has all the components of a great, not necessarily a great Black Sabbath song, but Anno Monday, I think, has always been a great Black Sabbath song. Again, like you said earlier, they're starting to recycle other ideas that they've already done in Black Sabbath for the song, but it works. It's a strong song of its own, and I think it really sets at least the intention going forward for the rest of the album. But as the album goes along, other than, I mean, Lawmaker's a funny song in itself. Tony Martin seems to have written it about Tony Iommi himself, I get that impression that it's all about he's the one that sets the rules down, and there's references to the Silver Mountain and references to Prince of Darkness. So I don't know if it was just Tony Martin having a bit of fun with the fact that the other singers had thought that they were in control of the band, and then it's actually the lawmaker, it's Tony Iommi who's in charge. It's a fun song, but again, musically, it really sounds like it could be by another band. Like it doesn't necessarily really sound like a Black Sabbath song, which I always thought was odd. Jerusalem's a good song, and I think it's one that Tony Martin's really proud of. But again, it's almost poppy. Again, for Black Sabbath, there's so many vocal harmonies and stuff going on that I've always found that it's a bit strange for Black Sabbath, and we could talk about several of the other songs, but my least favourite, and we've mentioned it, is by far and away Feels Good to Me, that they put out as a single for the album, purely because not only is it my least favourite on the album, but it's my least favourite thing that Black Sabbath have ever recorded, just because sometimes people say, oh, it changes and things like that. It couldn't be more far away from what Black Sabbath sound like, what they ever tried to sound like. It felt to me like they were trying to make an MTV hit, songs that would go alongside Bon Jovi and things like that. And I feel like the song is not even very good for what it tries to be. And I feel like the fact that Black Sabbath have this song released as a single is insulting. It's hands down my least favourite thing they've ever done. I do not like it at all.
Thank you. Thanks, K-Man. Yep. I think a lot of these songs were written when they were demoed. I reckon that Jeff Nichols did the melody lines, and then the song was grafted on from there up.
Around it.
And Sabbath to me is Tony Iommi getting out the guitar and doing riffs. So they've got it the wrong way around. The keyboards are way too much up, and I love keyboards, but in Sabbath they're more of just doing atmosphere, back in the mix. Tony's guitar in this album is just so back in the mix. And Cozy, his drums, you said he's the most valuable player. Well, he's right up in the mix. It's he's the drum sound of this is so echoey. It's kind of annoying. Jerusalem, that's my favourite. Martin's in fine voice. He has a chorus that's memorable. It's hooky. It's melodically interesting. But again, Nichols' keyboards map out the melody and everybody is on top. It's the wrong way around. It's got a blend of the histrionic. It's a bit gothic, but it works. But Tony's guitar playing on this one's kind of different. He plays a bit of rhythm guitar. So, again, in this era, he's doing less of the riffs that we know that Tony can do, and he's taking a back seat to other sort of soundscapes. Reed, I'm going to do the instrumental just to annoy you. Battle of Tyr. It's an interlude. It's not compelling. It reminds me of like a War of Warcraft soundtrack on a video game. It's not on a Sabbath album, please. K-Man, quick question to you. Do you think because they were doing concepts and were they trying to get into Iron Maiden territory, historical sort of stuff? I don't know.
No. Yeah, I know they've got all the runes and stuff around the edging and things like that. I don't know if it was a sense of trying to, the label trying to copy anyone else. I've never heard anyone make any reference to Maiden or anything like that. Especially at that time, it's, 1990 Tyr came out. So I don't think the label would be looking towards... I don't know where. I honestly don't know who came up with the concept within the PR department or why. But obviously, I think Tony Martin was inspired by the fact that they'd come up with this idea and he ran with it. You know what I mean? He took it up and said, okay, here's something I can work with. It's not just your typical black stereotypical gothic horror, Black Sabbath. Like I think he really felt like when he first joined the band, he was expected to write Black Sabbath, doomy, gothic kind of lyrics, and he himself didn't feel very comfortable doing it. So I think with Tear there was an element of, okay, how can he make this concept personal to him? Because although there is these references to Vikings and gods and things, Tony Martin felt like he could kind of skew it to be about a statement about the world, I think, and society. But I don't really get that from this album, that's what this album is really particularly doing. If it has an overall message about society or anything like that, it's certainly lost on me.
Yeah,
in terms of an album, in terms of a concept album or anything like that, I don't think anyone's ever said outright, "Oh, it's intended to be a concept album," but it's very, very strange. But I'm always surprised the amount of people I meet who always say to me, "Oh, Tear is their favourite Tony Martin album." A lot of people seem to kind of dig it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, everyone's got different opinions, and that's what this show's all about. All right. Cross purposes. Gentlemen, I'll be really interested to hear your views. Is this kind of a bounce back? So you've got Tony Martin on vocals, Tony Iommi on guitars, Geezer Butler on bass, Bobby Rondinelli on drums, and Jeff Nichols in keyboards. So Reed, thoughts? Best song, worst song?
So I always have to introduce my favorite Cozy Powell anecdote. He said that he called Bobby Rondinelli at one point and said, "Why don't I just give you my ex-girlfriend's phone number because she followed me everywhere else?"
Yep.
So Rondinelli's a great drummer. I mean, but he was in Rainbow, he was in Black Sabbath. Did he ever play in Whitesnake? I don't think he ever played in Whitesnake.
No.
But he played in Blue Oyster Cult for a while. I don't know if he's still out there or not. I haven't heard his name in a long time.
Sun Red Sun, that Ray Gillen project. I just bought a CD the other day. Killer.
Oh, okay. Well, so for a long time, I didn't pay any attention to this album at all. I owned it, but I just didn't really listen to it. And then I must say it's when they released the boxed set that I got the remastered or remixed version. I always forget what the difference is between remixes and remasters and which one this is. But in any case, that I listened to it and went, hey, this album's got some really good stuff on it. There are some really good songs on this album. And as far as pun titles go, Cross Purposes is pretty good. It's completely meaningless and yet feels, appropriate for Black Sabbath. So, I mean, good job on that, I guess. I like the cover art. I think it's as a package, it's pretty good. I mean, again, I don't know what that's supposed to be, but I guess just an angel with their wings on fire. Fine. It's fine. Seems appropriate, right? So, but there are some songs on this album that I really, really dig. And my favorite, again, is a different song, and that's Psychophobia. So this is a really weird track for Black Sabbath. And it's for a band to have been making music as long as these guys had been making music, to come out with a song that's truly surprising, that's something different, is not easy. And this song, it's got a great riff. It's much more Born Again than it is, War Pigs, but it's got this really great fast riff. It's a real attention getter. And then Tony Martin's vocal on it is really strange, but it has one of my absolute favorite vocal melodies where he goes, I I think it's the bridge. Sometimes I lose track of what the musical terminology is. But he goes into all my colors have run dry, and now I see the world in black and white, I think is the lyric. But I love how he kind of slides into this off-key chromatic note and then goes back into key. It's really good. It really catches the ear. And his lyric is doomy. Apparently he wrote it about cult leader David Koresh, which I certainly would not have gotten from reading the lyric. I didn't get that from reading the lyric, but he said that on stage. So, hell, he wrote it. I guess he knows. But I think it's a fantastic song. Weirdest thing about it, no guitar solo. Not even an outro solo. It's got 2 great guitar riffs and no solo. And then this great vocal melody. It's very different for Black Sabbath, and I just dig it. And it's the one that I find myself like gravitating to most often when I listen to this album. Now, interestingly, to me at least, my least favorite song is the very next track, Virtual Death. And I don't know. A lot of times I'm not the type of fan who does a lot of like deep research and I want to read everything that's going on with the band and what happened when they were recording. I mean, I do a little of that, but I haven't done a lot of research on this album. But this song sounds to me like a leftover from Dehumanizer. It is, I mean, Virtual Death, for one thing, that theme is that is Dehumanizer in a song title. The music is very similar to Dehumanizer, and I happen to like Dehumanizer. I mean, it's Dio. Anybody who's seen me on this channel before knows what a massive Dio fan I am. But it doesn't work for me with Tony Martin singing this song. Also, I usually love harmony vocals, but there's something about the way they have Tony Martin harmonize with himself on this that just doesn't work for me. I don't know. I get some cognitive dissonance listening to this song, and I'm like, did they just bring this song over completely from the Dehumanizer sessions and say, here, Tony, write a lyric to this? Which is what I think actually happened. I mean, that's my guess, but it's my least favorite song.
All right. Thanks, Reed. K-Man.
I know I said earlier that if I was to recommend any Tony Martin album, I would recommend Headless Cross, but Cross Purposes is my favourite Tony Martin album of all of them. I think it shows Tony Martin is most comfortable in the band. I think he was writing lyrics that were topical and important to him at the time, like the sense of his self-belief in the songs. I feel there's real conviction in how he sings these songs and what these songs mean to him. I also feel like there is like a kind of danger to these songs, like an aggression to these songs that the other Tony Martin albums haven't really had. And I think Geezer Butler coming back probably has a lot to do with it. Black Sabbath sound more like Black Sabbath album on this album than they do on the albums without Geezer, and it makes all the difference. They just feel more present, and the songs are more powerful, and it's darker, and it's kind of sneering as well at the world. It's not as like down, it's more in your face. And Cross Purposes, I've always really, really loved it. It's why I always sing Tony Martin's praises to anyone I meet, because I feel like this album is completely forgotten about, not only among the world, but among Sabbath fans. Most people don't really consider or bring up Cross Purposes. There's something about it that's always resonated with me, and I love it a lot. I think Cross of Thorns would be the song for me that I would say is the best song on the album. I think it's a total anthem. I feel like it kind of captures everything I like about Tony Martin. and I've always liked the imagery. I've always liked that it's a song that means something, and it's my favourite song on the album. I like it a lot. My least favourite song on the album is one that I just never really stands out, and I always forget that it's even on the album. It's Cardinal Sin. The rest of the album, each song has its own personality, and I think Cardinal Sin just kind of disappears in the list. It's I don't dislike it or anything. It's just always the one that I come back to, and I have to remind myself, oh yeah, this song is on the album. Other than that, yeah, I really rate this album highly. I love it a lot.
I agree with you. I think this is probably my second favourite Tony Martin album. And it's easily one of the most underrated albums in the Sabbath discography. So, folks, check it out. I think it's because Iommi went back to writing riffs instead of doing soundscapes and melody. It was going back to riffs. And my favourite song of this album is The Hand That Rocks the Cradle. He pulls out of the bag again. He pulls this classic, tricky, gnarly little riff. It's just got this little, it's like a triplet or something. It's just really gnarly. And I love the light and shade of the vocals. Martin sings beautifully in the quieter moments. And then he brings out the leather-lung vocals for the main riff of the song. But this riff is just so hooky and it's just earwiz. I love it. But there's so many different great tracks. I like Back to Eden. I like that Psychophobia track that you were talking about, Reed. I think it's a really, really strong album, and I think the playing's great. I think Geezer Butler on bass is a masterstroke, bringing back to get a bit of that classic Sabbath sound. And Bobby Rondinelli, the drumming. Richie let him go out of Rainbow because apparently Bobby couldn't keep up. Well, I'll tell you, I think Bobby's a really fine player, and his drumming on this album is phenomenal. The song I don't like as much as the others is Evil Eye. It's a gnarly riff. It's got a bit of bite, and Tony Martin is singing for his supper, but at the end of the day, it goes on a little too long. And that's probably the problem with a lot of these Tony Martin songs in the Tony Martin era. I'd like it if it got back to some of the early Sabbath songs, and it's probably because I've got a very short attention span. I'd prefer, instead of doing a 6-minute 50 song, trim it down, folks. Get it down to 2 to 3 minutes. Some of the greatest Sabbath songs were around that sort of duration. This 6-minute business, 5 minutes, it goes on too long. Reed, do you think a lot of the Tony Martin songs they go on a little bit too long?
Yeah, Black Sabbath, I know by the way, people, if you haven't seen it, Peter and I did an entire show on whether Sabbath Bloody Sabbath was a prog album. Think it is. But generally speaking, Sabbath, not a very proggy band. They are a very repetitive band in the way they compose and arrange their songs, and that does not lend itself to 6, 7, 8 minute songs. It lends itself to 3-minute songs, 4-minute songs, and out. If you need more length, add another guitar solo. Don't add another chorus or something.
I've never really felt like the songs go on too long. Like, it's not so much that maybe they kind of outstay their welcome, but it's more sometimes they're just not as interesting as they could be, as opposed to, I kind of wish this would end. You know what I mean? It's if that's the criticism that people have of it. I mean, if you look at the length of the songs on this album, they really are only 4 or 5 minute songs. It's not as if we're dealing with 8-minute songs, 7-minute songs, 6-minute songs. They are all within the 4.5 minute mark. So it might just be because they kind of don't do a lot of other things in the song.
Yeah, I think I was, just to clarify, I was more talking about the whole discography, not necessarily this album, but this one.
Right.
Gee whiz, those songs go on forever. That's too long. If you look at the duration, Kayvon, of these songs, it's just stretching the ideas out. And, and if you don't groove on it in the first 2 minutes, it's an ordeal. Yeah. It's just a real sort of got to get through it.
Right.
All right.
I thought a funny thing I wanted to mention about this album is, since we've mentioned that the artwork, is that actually a funny thing is the album cover had been previously used a couple of years beforehand as a single for Scorpions' Crazy World album. I think it ended up being the artwork for, if you look at Send Me an Angel, that same image with the angel burning wings. And I think nobody at RIS noticed that it's been used before. And so when they gave it to Sabbath to use for the album, no one had realised that it had already been used. So it's a funny coincidence, I guess, that this artwork is for Black Sabbath has already been given to another band and nobody noticed.
Yeah, I'll track that down and I'll put that up funny. On the for the folks. Yeah,
good payday for the artist.
Yeah.
Well, that's true. Like the Born Again, which I love. Baby. That was used by Depeche Mode. So I think a Depeche Mode song, a single, used exactly the same artwork but in a different sort of tonality.
Yeah, I think it was a photo originally, and I think Depeche Mode used that photo of the baby crying, but Crusher did obviously illustrate it himself for Black Sabbath, so it's not like Depeche Mode used Black Sabbath.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But I'm just saying that they use the same
picture of the baby. Yeah.
And he wanted it to get rejected, and it got accepted. And
Iconic.
It's one of my favorite Black Sabbath album covers. I won't accept any substitute. I know a lot of, if you watch the Contrarian album show, a lot of them poo-poo it, but I think it's one of their best album covers. Can we talk about this? Because this is the most controversial, maligned, put-down album. Look, folks, the three of us, we could probably talk about this album for an hour, but we won't.
Yep.
But, oh my God, Forbidden Black Sabbath. How much internet heat has this one copped? Iommi, Tony Martin, Cozy Powell back on drums, Neil Murray on bass, Jeff Nichols on keyboards. Produced by Ernie C. of Body Count. And, I'll throw it over to you, Reed. Step us through this one.
So, when I bought the Tony Martin Years box set, it actually struck me that I had never listened to Forbidden before. And it's because of all of the things that everyone says about it. It's got a cameo by Ice-T on it. It's produced by Ernie from Body Count. And it had, frankly, my least favorite Black Sabbath album cover. In fact, when I looked at the CD, I think the redone, if you'll hold that up again, Peter, all of this orange area on the left, I do not remember that on the original album cover. I only remember the figure of death. So I think that they've reframed the picture for the reissue.
Yep.
And it just, it's cheesy as hell. And I was like, I was just, I wasn't interested. And so when I got out the reissue, I think this one is a remix, not a remaster, because Tony has added things that were originally taken out of the recording. And the first song starts, I'll just say my least favorite song is the very opening track. So I listened to that and I was like, oh no, this album is going to be everything that people said it was. Well, in my opinion, that first song is the worst song on the album, and the rest of the album is surprisingly good. And I was like, oh, wait, where did this come from? This is pretty good. What? Why did they put the worst song as the first song? That doesn't make any sense to me at all. And it's not a particularly good riff. And then you've got Tony Martin doing, it's not, I won't call it rap. It's not pseudo rap, but it is spoken word. His cadence is bad. His inflection is bad. He clearly is not comfortable with the style of delivery. There are a couple of other songs where he's not just doing socially conscious lyrics. He's doing LA socially conscious lyrics, talking about firearms and taking care of your brother. And I'm like, I've never lived in England, but I doubt people in England talk that way. That's the way people in Los Angeles talk. So it is not a good fit. But Illusion of Power is just not a good song. By the end of it, I was like, oh man, what are the other songs on this album gonna be like? And then they're good. My first several listens, Rusty Angels was my favorite track. But actually the one that stuck with me really when I was preparing for this show, again, I went to Can't Get Close Enough, which almost feels like it's going to be another Feels Good to Me situation, but it is not. It has a melodic section, actually several melodic sections, but it also has those real heavy, doomy sections. And for my money, this is as close as they ever got in the Tony Martin years to producing a Heaven and Hell style Dio track, where you've got the melodic sections, and then you've got those really driving, like powerful sections. And Tony Martin sounds as good as he can under the circumstances. When you talk about album production, I know it's a very nebulous term. You don't know exactly, you're not there. You don't know what the producers do. Sometimes the producers just twiddle the knob. Sometimes they suggest arrangements. Sometimes they're, providing direction on the vocal delivery or who knows what. I will say on this album, Tony Iommi throws in a lot of little like bluesy guitar licks that he just doesn't do normally. Little fills and things. That's not his style. So because he only does it on this album, I'm going to guess that was Ernie asking him to do that. And I like that. But on the flip side, I don't like the guitar sound on this album. Even on this remixed version, I think it's not a very good guitar sound. And I think there's way too much compression on the vocal. And again, what I like best about Tony Martin is his dynamic range, not just his range of notes, but his ability to go from singing quite softly to singing very, very loud. And that is lost in this production. So there are things about it that I really don't like about the album. But that song, Can't Get Close Enough, I think it's a fantastic song. Also, I think the album got too much bass. It needs some presence. It needs some top end in it. It's got very short solos, very punchy solos. Again, I have to guess that was Ernie's input. It is not a standard Tony Iommi kind of solo. So altogether, though, great song. Wish it sounded better.
Yeah, thank you. K-Man, what's your take on this album? Favorite, least favorite song?
Well, this album infamously gets slated by everyone, and I think it's because at the time Kerrang gave it a particularly bad review. A lot of the hype around it beforehand was due to the fact that they'd obviously brought in Body Count with Ernie C to produce the album, and the fact that Ice-T was going to be on a Black Sabbath album, people find particularly disgusting, really. But considering Ernie C is a big Black Sabbath fan, he always has been, and Ice-T is on Forbidden for all of literally 15 seconds. I count it. He is only on the first track for 15 seconds, speaking the rap part that he does. And that has followed Black Sabbath around ever since. And even before the internet or anything like that, I was told how bad this album was. And it's nowhere near as bad as anyone ever claims it is. Is it the best thing that they've ever done with Tony Martin? No, it's not. It's not my least favourite Tony Martin album, but it's not my favourite either. It kind of sits in the middle, and I think the fact that it's been so torn down over the years has always made me want to defend it a little bit more, because it is obvious the majority of people who are really down on this album have never really listened to the album for the most part. And I think the fact that people take such umbrage to the fact that Ice-T's on a Black Sabbath album is just really, really ridiculous. It's not a bad thing. The rap that he does it's not like it takes control over the whole song, or like he's taking over Black Sabbath or anything like that. He's a Black Sabbath fan, and the label wanted a selling point to the album, and that's why Ernie C is a close friend of Ice-T, and that's why Ice-T's on the album, and that's it. If you think that having a rapper on a Black Sabbath album is such a wrong thing, then that's your prerogative. You know what I mean? You're entitled to think that, but that's not the reason why this album is bad, and the album isn't bad. That's what I'll say about it. And the new remix that Tony Iommi has done changes the album completely. If you two have never heard the original album, it's worth digging out. But I think the improvements that Tony Iommi has made to the album are massive. It makes these songs sound modern in a way that they never did at the time, and it makes these songs sound heavy in a way that they never were at the time. And the kind of 90s muddy production that you get on the original CD isn't there at all on the album, on the remix, sorry. Every single song kind of comes in with a real announcement, and that's not the case on the original CD. So there's a major change in the remix that I encourage people to listen to. It's cool. As far as favourites and least favourite goes, I've always had a soft spot for Illusion of Power, just because it's kind of cheesy, but it's fun. Like, it's just a fun opener, and I think they're doing the most with it. I've never had a problem with it. I enjoy it. As far as some of the other songs that I like less on the album, I'd say my least favourite is probably Can't Get Close Enough, because I've never really liked that kind of grungy, the way the guitar kind of repetitive kind of what's the word for it? It's like almost the really dry and kind of repetitive nature of that riff has always really bothered me in that song. And the fact you've got Tony Martin kind of soars over this riff is always, I've really never liked it. And the song itself isn't that bad, but it always annoys me that riff kind of repeats, and then Tony Martin kind of will sing across it regardless. It's not one of my it is one of my least favourite songs on the album. Can't Get Close Enough.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Can't Get Close Enough is my favourite.
Okay, there you go.
Sorry, mate. It starts as the most un-Sabbath song on the album, or for that matter, any Sabbath album. It's got this really unusual vocal phrasing where he does a couple of words and there's a pause or a space, and then he does a couple of words. And then it goes into this Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath era riff, possibly cribs a couple of their earlier songs. I think it's interesting. It's a very unusual type of Sabbath song. I find the production, maybe I'll rephrase that. I find a lot of the arrangements of this song, of this album and the sonics very much in line with the mid-90s where alternative rock and grunge rule. Remember when, metal was in the underground, folks, and grunge ruled? I think this album is through that prism. And I think that the band was at its lowest ebb. They were playing clubs and they were just clutching at straws to get something, to get a hook to get back on top. And really the only way to get them back on top and really started and planted the seed for the legacy of Sabbath to be where it is today was to get Ozzy back and do Reunion. Because I think this was really a full stop on the Tony Martin era, wasn't it? Wasn't going to go anywhere. Can't Get Close Enough. I don't mind that song. Also, honourable mention to Get a Grip. It's got a heavy rolling riff. I don't mind this album. I think it's unfairly maligned. It's nowhere near the worst Sabbath album. I think this album is much worse, just as an example, or maybe tier. But I like that a lot. My worst song is probably Sick and Tired. It starts as a languid down-tuned number. Then in the verse goes upscale and melodic with Jeff Nichols and this horrible chimey keyboard lines. Again, not a traditional Sabbath song by any means. Nothing sticks on this song. It just doesn't flow, it connects, and it doesn't have a hook that you want to hang your hat on. But, Reed, I think you've said this in an earlier commentary, or maybe I read some sort of interaction amongst our friends. I think you were saying that this album is very much where Tony's focused on the melodies and it's less on the riff, isn't it?
More so than cross purposes, but he's got more riffs on this than he does on Tear. So I wouldn't say it's, again, completely riffless, but it's a different style. It's not as riff dominated. It's more, again, this has to be Ernie. It's more California than it is Britain.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there we go. Sorry, K-Man?
No, I think it's funny because I have heard Tony Martin say quite recently that he was in that kind of LA kind of mind in terms of when he wrote a lot of these songs, and that's what he had in mind when he wrote, for example, Rusty Angels. A lot of people think that song's about angels, and he said it was about the old aircrafts that he said he visited an aircraft in LA and saw the old rusted aeroplanes, and so that's why he wrote the song. And a lot of people come up to him and say, oh, that's a really Sabbath-esque song, and he was like, well, actually it's about aeroplanes, so it's funny. Another thing I wanted to mention, because you brought up the amount of keyboards and stuff, I think Tony Martin said that they'd become so close as a group of friends in the time that they'd worked together, that he was always very conscious of the fact that Jeff Nichols had been in the band for such a long time, and he very rarely ever got a mention for even being in the band. And so he and Tony Martin were close friends, and he always felt like it was a real injustice that he not get mentioned and not be more focused when within the band, whether or not he meant on stage as well as when they made music. So I think that was a real thing that he was conscious of trying to bring forward in the band all the time, as Jeff Nichols' contribution, which was at times quite vast.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's part of the family. He's part of the family.
Mm-hmm.
Nichols was a member of Tony Martin's solo band. He had a band called Headless Cross that Jeff Nichols was in. Larry Cottrell, too, for Cottle, I think, too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, gents, this has been fun. I've really enjoyed going through this catalogue, and it's been a really interesting chat, and we're going through the Tony Martin era. So, folks, do yourself a favour. I mean, everyone goes to Ozzy or Dio or you've got to discover this Tony Martin era. I think it's unfairly sort of ignored, glossed over, but it's part of the Black Sabbath story. And I just think that this box set does right the wrongs. However, it's missing this particular album, probably contractually, because this was the last album on Warner's.
And they've re-released each of the albums separately.
I know.
As well, so it's cool. For the longest time, these you couldn't buy these albums. The albums that I bought online, I had to get the Japanese imports,
right?
Because you can't buy the albums. You definitely can't buy them in shops, and it's hard to get them online. So
cost me an arm and a leg, K-Man. Cost me an arm and a leg at a record fair. Yeah. Oh.
That's it. You can't get a hold of these albums. So the fact that these albums are now, they're streaming, they're online, you can buy them online. It's great, you know what I mean? Because this is not just a couple of albums that Black Sabbath have done that most people don't care about. Like, if you look at the time period between Eternal Idol and Forbidden, it's almost 10 years, you know what I mean? And I think it's long overdue that people gave these albums a listen to. It's nice. It's good.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, gentlemen. Reed Little, you can see him on the Contrarians. He's a member of the Rock Daydream Nation family. Welcome again, K-Man. We'll do another show with you.
Thanks for
got through that one. Have a pint. No, you did well. Did well, bud. So please tell us what you think of the Tony Martin era Sabbath albums, favourite songs, favourite albums. We love reading your comments. Please like and subscribe. But one thing's for sure, you'll see these gentlemen doing more shows in 2025 and beyond. All the best and cheers. See ya.
Cheers, Peter.
Bye-bye.